I've got a special guest with me today. Someone I literally grew up playing soccer with in my backyard. He's a D licensed coach from Colorado, though you might notice a few palm trees behind him because he's currently in Hawaii. Coach Luke is my brother, and we talk soccer and coaching pretty much every week, sometimes every day. So I figured, why not hit the record on this one and we dig into play, practice, play, the methodology US soccer has been pushing for its youth coaches. Luke, welcome to the show. It's good to finally record one of our discussions.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for having me. I feel like maybe I'm a unpaid therapist sometimes, but that's okay, Jess.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I'd love to just dissect a little bit on play, practice, play, which U.S. soccer is really pushing on their coaches. I'm sure there's coaches out there that are watching this and have no idea what that is or have limited knowledge on it. Why don't you? I know you've went through some licensing courses in Colorado. Why don't you walk us through what you know about play, practice, play?
Sure. Play practice play is what U.S. Soccer prescribes for their youth grassroots soccer coaching. And it's what they're trying to do is they're trying to recreate a bit of the street soccer or backyard soccer, recess soccer that kids kind of aren't getting these days. That's kind of a big philosophy. You know, their thesis would probably be players improve by playing the game. So let's get them back into that environment, and that could be small-sided games or it could be big games. But the play, practice, play is dividing your practice into thirds. And the first third is a small-sided game that might be 30 minutes, broken up into its own little thirds where you give them a little water break or ask them a couple questions about what they're doing. The second part would be an actual practice where it might be, oh, we're working on offense in their third or defense in the middle of the field. You know, like you would have something that you've got planned. And then the last third would be a final scrimmage or game that would be using all the players in full field as much as you can. And that might even just be like one big goal to two counter goals. So that's very briefly what play practice play looks like. But it's a really good system, and it's so simple that any coach could do it. So you know, you could be a mom coach who's never played soccer before, and you could easily set this up. So it's not very difficult. The first part we can go into more detail about each one, but the first play part is meant so that the kids get to practice and they're instantly playing soccer, 3v3, 4v4, two goals at each end or one goal at each end, and it might be like a 40 by 30 space, and it's meant for kids to want to get to practice early so they don't miss out on the scrimmage that happens right away. And this is probably the most fun part of the practice is this 3v3 or 4v4. I'll even do 2v2s. But, you know, to make it more competitive, I'll do like a king of the court style or maybe a round robin, try to get a winner at the end. But the coach's job in this first third is basically just to be a good PE teacher. You know, they don't really need to be coaching, more like a cheerleader, like kind of highlight the positives, which is, not so much coaching, but just let the kids play and experiment. And this is that backyard or recess soccer that I was talking about earlier. And
So that would be the first. If it's an hour and a half practice, the first 30 minutes would
yes,
be you're not coaching them at all. You're just kind of helping them play their game.
yeah. And if your practice has like a focus, like most practices will have a focus, and you might just after 10 minutes call the players in and just ask them a couple questions, get them talking, thinking about whatever your focus is of that practice, and then get a little dialogue going, get them back out to playing, bring them back in at 20 minutes, and have just 2 or 3 minutes of a little bit more of talking, and then send them back out. And that's I would say that's optional. U.S. Soccer would say do it, but I'm like, I would just say the most important thing is that these kids are getting to play these 3v3 and 4v4 games, and then and that basically covers the first part, and they will have a lot of fun. So like some coaches are like, they're like a bit apprehensive about, oh, should I do this? And it's like, I guarantee you, because I went 5 or 6 years ago, whenever I did my licensing, I just took all of this and did it, right? I wasn't one of those coaches who are like, oh, I'm just going to do what I know. I was like, I'm trying this out.
What made you want to do that rather than what every other coach is doing with what they know, like what they grew up with? What was it that attracted you to it?
So at the time, I was the only coach at a middle school, and I had almost 30 players. And I was like, I need something that's easy. Right? So I literally had, 6 3v3 games going on all at the same time, and it was just me. And my job was basically just be a good PE teacher. Don't worry about the coaching through that first part. And it saved me. It really did. Like when you have a really big group, that made it so I could get through practice without like going like, ah. And so what you really want to do though is, like when I say be a good PE teacher, it means, is the field the right size? Do you have soccer balls all around the outside? So when the ball goes out, kids aren't running half a mile to go get it. I'm the one chasing the balls and just making sure they're having a good time playing soccer. Do they all have pennies on? Can they tell who's on each team? That sort of thing. But you can vary up your 3v3s and 4v4s. They don't have to be the same every single practice. You could have bigger goals. You could have goalies involved. You can do odd man stuff as well. Change the size of the pitch.
It's always a scrimmage though, right?
Yeah, it's always a small-sided game to start
with goals and objective to score the goal.
Yes.
Goal.
Yeah.
More goals than the other team.
So U.S. Soccer has this. It was taught to me like Ogre Community College, where you get OGRCC. And the first one is organized, which I just explained to you. Like, hey, when you start any exercise, they don't like to use the word drill. I know in the olden days we would say drill. We say games now. So if you do whenever you start a new exercise in practice or game, you always start by like, is this thing organized, right? Is it the right shape? Are the goals the right size? Do they need to be moved closer? Things like that. And then you get to move on to like, is it game-like? And, is this like what we would see in a game? So, hey, there's goals. Yeah, there's goals in games. The small-sided environment, that's just like a game. So honestly, things like rondos, U.S. Soccer would say, nope, that's not like a game because there's no goals. And people can argue that all they want, but, I'm not here to convince you one way or another about a certain exercise. And then we get to the R, which is repetitive. Do they get to keep practicing the same thing over and over again so that they get better at a specific skill? Which again is true in a small-sided game. And then is it competitive, right? Like, are the kids being challenged? Are the players being challenged in that exercise? And when I had almost 30 players, I had like really high level players and then also like JV players in the same environment. So for me, I would be sticking all the good kids together in one 3v3. And then the weakest players would be in another, so that the good kids don't go, this is boring and easy. And the weak kids go, oh, I'm terrible at soccer. Everybody's right. You're trying to get everybody to win about half the time. So that's how that works. And then the middle practice, it can be more, something that's a little bit more structured that they would repeat over and over again. And, if you just go online, there's lots of different play practices already created that U.S. Soccer has made, where you can grab the middle practice section if there's something specific you want to work on. Even your club will probably have it if they do practice play. And then the last play is just a large scrimmage at the end of practice. And you can.
So the first play is more of a smaller kind of a scrimmage. The end one is more of a fuller, large field kind of a game, right? With however many players you have.
Yeah, if you only have 16 players, you might be playing 8v8, even though on game day you're playing 11v11. And you could do things where it's like you're doing it on half the field, one big goal to two counter goals, and then you just swap the players after 15 minutes so that each team gets to go both ways.
Okay, so I know a lot of coaches like to do build-out patterns or ball mastery. Where would you fit that into this?
So U.S. soccer doesn't actually build in any time for ball mastery, which is something that I love ball mastery. I think every practice should start with trying to get your kids 1,000 touches on the ball in 10 minutes. So I always start my practices with ball mastery, and then I get into my small-sided games and go through the rest of the practice. So, and again, this is made for any coach, right? And there might be that mom coach there who might struggle to run a ball mastery session if she's not very good at soccer. But because we played soccer, we can do ball mastery stuff at the beginning of practice. So I actually do that, and I would say that everybody should be doing ball mastery to start practices, or some type of challenge. You could do obstacle courses or whatever you wanted to do, but do some kind of competitive thing, juggling, fast footwork, toe touches, whatever floats your boat.
Right.
But that's how I start.
And then
go ahead.
What about like build-out patterns or things like that, which aren't really game-like? They don't fit into the OGRCC model.
You don't have to be like super rigid about this model, but you would stick that in your middle practice part of your practice. Right. But again, it's completely up to you. This is just a framework that will help you to organize your practice so that you're not, so it makes it a lot easier for you. Right. And that build out might be more appropriate for an older team, or like every age group has its own challenges and things that you need to be doing. If you're working with very, very good soccer players, maybe practice play isn't quite what you need. But I think it works at any level.
Yeah, it would. I think it would too, just because the kids are playing all the time in this system.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like U.S. soccer is trying to get the coach out of the picture a little bit. Like they don't like what the coaches are doing. Is that your feeling with it? With why they're pushing it?
I don't know that they're trying to push the coaches out of the way. I think they're just trying to create a platform that is easy for coaches to administer, while also something that's very fun for the kids and makes them better soccer players. So they kind of have both of these things in mind. And we are not the Netherlands. We have, we're still the United States and North America is pretty young still when it comes to soccer. So, this is the right approach probably for the United States, just with our, soccer history and soccer makeup. We probably don't have a lot of A-licensed coaches running around here coaching practices.
Well, we also don't have the street soccer, as they call it, for all these kids, where in Europe they come home from school and they're playing soccer with their friends and they're playing soccer at school, where over here it's a lot more rare for that to happen.
Yeah, so
I think that play emphasis.
Yeah, that's where that first third comes in, is they're trying to recreate that. Now, in my opinion, that's not enough. Like, I like to look at soccer. Like when I grew up, we probably played 4 hours of backyard or recess soccer for every 1 hour we were with a coach. Now kids are with a coach for 4 hours, and they probably still aren't even getting that 1 hour of playing recess soccer or backyard soccer with their friends. So it's not quite enough, but they are, trying to give the players what they actually need, which will make them better soccer players. And I've been kind of using this for 5 or 6 years, or at least got the main principles of it. And as I've done play, my second P oftentimes turns into another play. It's like I'm finding that, instead of going to some practice thing, I'm better off going to another small-sided game that works on a different thing, and maybe I coach a little bit more through that. So so a lot of times my practices will be like 2 3v3 or 4v4s, going on for the first third of the practice, and then maybe I'll just keep those 2 goals where they are and turn it into like Fanino type of a thing. And then maybe in that same space, we're doing a full-sided scrimmage the long way. And that's what the kids love that. Like the best thing you can do is small-sided game, and then just figure out a way to coach through those small-sided games. And I will even get rid of the goals in the middle one and do stuff like touchdown soccer or 4-goal or 4-corner soccer, like stuff that really tries to work the players' brains instead of just like kicking into a goal. Now we're trying to think about things. So I really like that, and I still use like the format, break it into thirds, and I usually turn that middle practice part into some other type of small-sided game that kind of challenges them. But at the same time, if there's stuff I see in the game is like, oh, we got to work on this, I'll stick that into the middle practice part as something that we have to work on if I can't do it through a small-sided game.
What about the repetition part? Like a lot of clubs, they'll do specialized training, maybe 1v1s, trying to work on a specific move, like the scissors or step over or whatever it might be. Where can you add that into this? Because if you're just scrimmaging most of the time, are we able to get specific individualized repetition? Like not many kids on the field are going to actually do those kind of moves in those scrimmages, or not very often.
Well, I think what most coaches would tell you is most coaches would tell you that stuff is, to them, it would be homework, right? Like you take that home, work on it. I would say sneak it into your ball mastery at the beginning, 1 ball per kid, and get that sort of stuff in there. Or maybe you have certain practices, a Friday night practice or something, where it's like, all right, half the practice we're doing skills. All right, suck it up. Right, you get to play all week, so here's where you kind of introduce that sort of stuff.
You like this would definitely work for young kids, for little kids up to U12, U13, because they're getting so much playing and they're coming to the practice to play soccer, right? And so having all this play in there is so good for them because they experience the game. I do wonder, would this be good for university kids or those really experienced kids that are playing soccer all the time? Like, is this the best approach for them? What do you think?
No, this is not the best approach for them. But it's not a bad approach. It's just something you just wouldn't do day after day after day after day. And once you're at that level, each position group probably needs specific practices that helped, defenders need to be working on defensive stuff. Erling Haaland needs to be in front of the goal, getting 100 shots every practice so that his shooting ratio to goal to shot ratio is really high. Like there's just certain things. Once you get to be a really good soccer player, you need to be working on individualized
Right.
stuff. So this is, and at that level, they'll have the C, the B, the A licensed coaches who can run a practice in their sleep, no problem for every, for that type of environment. So this is definitely for younger kids, grassroots. It's just straight up grassroots soccer. I'd also like to add just that another part of play practice play is just like knowing when to coach throughout your practice. So U.S. soccer will say, freezes, which we were used to, like, everybody's playing and then stop, freeze, that type of thing. They're like, don't do that very much,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe if you have one exercise, do it once or twice in that half-hour frame or something like that, and then you coach through that. And the other, similar to a freeze, you can just do it through a natural stoppage in play. Ball goes out of bounds. You quickly interrupt for 10 seconds, and then they're playing again. It doesn't even feel like you froze them. And then the last way is just to like pull a player aside and let the game keep playing and just ask them a question, or why did you do this, or why did you do that? Just trying to, or why don't you try this next time? That type of thing, but definitely no like joysticking or anything like that. I've even heard like coaches, like, in our day it was freeze or stop, yelled really loud. Now some coaches will be like, pause, like, as we got.
No, that's
really
a good
soft.
term, actually.
Yeah, pause. It's like, let's just hit the
'Cause
pause
they know
button
that-
for a sec.
Yeah, it lets the kids know, oh, we're gonna get back into it.
Yeah.
He just needs to get done what he's saying.
This is not a full stop. This is just a pause. So those are the three ways that you can interrupt your practice to coach. And once you know about those three ways, you'll start thinking about them and just instead of just going instinctively, which is straight to the stop, right?
Well, I think that also makes sense for what U.S. soccer's trying to do with just letting kids play, right? The more you stop it, the more you're hurting that idea.
Yeah, and
So
then
that makes sense.
And then the two things that they say that you should, the things to actually coach would be technical mistakes. That's the first one. So let's say somebody passes the ball and it's a terrible pass, and you know that they didn't put their plant foot right next to the ball or whatever. You can coach that in that moment, or even with that player, you could just take them aside and do that. But like, so technical mistakes, and the next might be tactical mistakes. Like, why didn't you switch the ball here, or just things like that. So you got your technical and your tactical, and those are the two things that you're trying to coach throughout your practice. And then after that, U.S. Soccer has a bunch of, kind of like obvious or things that they, that play practice play, that's a part of it. Stuff like don't joystick the players, once they're in the game, shut your mouth. The parents will do enough of that already. Be very highly positive. Don't be the negative coach. You don't want to be the negative coach. You want to be the high five coach, the fist bump guy, the elbows, just act. I say just act beyond your normal personality, so that you're like really excited, the kid that never scores a goal, like you're jumping up and down, You want these kids to come back to, you're trying to make the players not sign up for a different sport. You want them to keep coming back. Judge yourself based off of whether all the kids sign up to play soccer next year, right? So like, make it exciting for them. Don't care about winning that much. Lots of high fives. No lines in practice. Show up early to everything. Have everything set up before the kids get there. Don't have flat soccer balls. Don't be that coach. You know who
That's
you are.
Actually, you mentioned the lines. I think that's a big thing of what U.S. Soccer is trying to do, is get rid of the lines, get rid of the kids standing around listening to a coach. Just get them playing, getting experience with playing the game of soccer so that they can actually learn the game. Where I had my youngest son, he was playing for a coach, and you know this, but the viewers don't. The coach would talk half the practice. My wife actually recorded the coach how many times he stopped play and had them just stand there while he talked and explained things. And these are 9-year-old kids who just came to play soccer. And half the practice that she was at was just him talking, explaining things. And needless to say, he stopped playing soccer shortly after that. So I think that's really the example of what U.S. soccer is trying to avoid, is these kids not enjoying the game because it's not fun when they come to practice. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's not just up there. That's down here still too. Like, I see coaches who do the practice play, training, but then I see them run their practices and it's like, where did practice play go? Right? Like they'll even be excited about it at the training. And then you go look at their practice and it's like, oh, there's those boring lines again. And they just revert back to what they know, right? What they grew up with, what their coach did. And I'll tell you what their coach did sucked, right? What they did in the 80s and 90s was not good. For me, my litmus test would be, I would just ask the players, do you guys like doing this? Like if it's a rondo, I'll say, do you like doing the rondo? And some will be, yeah, it's okay. So it's all right, whatever. It's like, all right, more small-sided games. And do you like the small-sided games? Yes, love it. Do you anything that you do with competition involved? They're going to say, yes, we love it. So like in my ball mastery stuff, I'm always having like juggling contests, who can get the most, who can juggle the furthest, all that sort. Once you start doing those kind of things, the players, once you say move on, the players will be like, no, one more chance. So if you can figure out ways to make it competitive, that's where that OGRCC comes in. That competitive part is that last part, or the second last one. I didn't even get to the last one, which was coaching. That's when you got to coach. But if you just figure out small-sided games are your way to coach, it'll get really easy. You don't have to do much work.
Right. I get that for sure. A lot of coaches, they default to passing patterns and adding those into their practices. And it can be tempting when you're going through YouTube looking for examples of how to coach when you see professional teams doing these kind of things. But these teams, these players are also practicing every single day. And this is just a small section of what they're doing, where little kids, they need to play lots of soccer is the thing, right? And I think passing patterns really is divergent from what the U.S. soccer is trying to do with practice play.
I personally don't like passing patterns, and that's partially because I'm like a center midfielder who plays cerebrally, right? Like I don't need to be programmed. I'm not like a basketball player who's running set plays. And that's what passing patterns is, just trying to recreate. It's like, okay, once it comes inside, then we go wide, we go down, we cross, then we get a shot. You take
the creativity out of it.
Yeah, you kind of take the creativity out of soccer. And it does not follow the OGRCC, right? It's not game-like. It might be organized. It might be repetitive to the point kids will go insane. But it's not fun. My daughter once did a whole practice, hour and a half, all passing patterns, and she was ready to quit soccer that next day. So luckily she didn't. Yeah. But that kind of tells you, right? You just ask the players, was that fun? If they say no, then you're like, all right, we're never doing that again, right? This is 2025. Right. We should have enough soccer activities where we can accomplish our goals and it's still fun. Yeah, that's the main thing. But Jesse, one thing I'd like to talk about is how to coach little kids, right? So if you have very little kids, I don't like practice play. So if I got 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, I am going to spend 80% of my practice with one ball per kid, because all that matters at that age is touch. We got to be, when they're that young, they're like sponges. So if they're doing lots of stuff with the ball, like ball mastery type things, but in a very fun environment. So one ball per kid for 80% of the practice, then the last 20% can be a scrimmage. So get your kids as many touches as possible. So this could be games like red light, green light. It could be sharks and minnows. Those types of activities for that first 80%, where it's just one ball per kid. I used to do one where the kids would all dribble around in a square or a box and try to avoid running into each other. And I might say right foot or left foot or inside, outside of your foot. And I might call out, their body part like knee, and they'd have to stop the ball with their knee, or bum, they'd have to sit on the ball. And that is fun for little kids, and they're just getting touches the whole time. Where even play, practice, play, that's still one ball for 6 kids for that first scrimmage, right? That's not enough. These kids gotta have amazing touches by the time they're 5 or 6, and we gotta drill that in early with the players. So I actually disagreed with my D-license coach. I was like, he showed us a video of like 5-year-olds, and they were just hacking the ball around. And he's like, what do these guys need? And I'm like, they all need a soccer ball is what they need. And I'm like, no. Right? Like, it's like, well, you're a university coach. What are you going to know? Right? I coach these kids. So I knew that, I've seen it in action. If you one ball per kid for 80% of your practice, those kids are going to have a good touch very fast. Like, you can see it week to week, how the kids get better if you're really like counting touches.
Right.
So that's the one caveat I'd say about play, practice, play, is just for that very young age group, get everybody a ball.
Right. Just get them excited about having a ball at their feet.
And the other thing too is like, one thing I was taught was, if your kid, this is probably like 15 years ago, but like if your players are 5 years old, every exercise should be 5 minutes. If that's what their attention span can handle. If your kids are 6-year-old, they can handle a 6-minute exercise, and that's it. And then we go to the next exercise. So if your practice is 45 minutes long, your kids are 5 years old. I don't know what's that, like nine exercises. You got to come ready with 9 exercises for the kids, and just move through them really quickly, like that. And that'll really help you to figure out how to do a little kid practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you find that coaches in the U.S. are actually doing play, practice, play?
I don't see too much. I don't see that much evidence of it.
I don't see it either.
Yeah, I do it. I'm not like watching that many coaches' practices, but a lot of coaches. Like my daughter plays kind of at an elite level, so she's usually around, people who played like their coaches should have played in university, or, they maybe think they're above it. I don't think I'm above it. I played in university, so I don't think I'm above it. I think it's been very helpful to me, and just giving me a starting foundation, and then I give it my own little tweaks, how I see it, how I think I can make it better to fit my environment. But yeah, I think most coaches are still a little bit set in their ways, whatever has worked before, and maybe even a bit afraid that it's not going to work. It's like, how could that work? Or what are the parents going to think if all I'm doing is scrimmages?
I know that is definitely a concern. I know for coaches, like, I got to look like I'm coaching these kids, right? Where if I'm setting up a 3v3 and I'm not really getting involved, I'm just looking like a PE teacher. What are they paying me for, right? I'm sure that's a thought on coaches' minds.
But let me so I was listening to a podcast like maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember who did it, so I can't credit them. But they had 2 guys, this is in England, and they had one guy who might have been at like Chelsea, two of the two Premier League teams, let's say Chelsea and Man United, and they were talking and about their youth soccer programs at the clubs. And the one guy said, well, we do 80% small-sided games for their practices, was the one guy. And the other guy was like, well, we do 90%. So if that tells you anything, we're already, play is already behind, right? Because play practice play is 60% of of scrimmaging, right? So it's like we just got to get the kids playing. And I try to mimic what those two guys were saying about what they're doing over in England, with
Right.
Trying to turn it into play.
Yeah, they're doing this all over Europe. Spain, England, Canada's doing a version of this called whole part whole. I think they call it that in England. And then Germany, from what I understand, they've just built a bunch of really small fields for doing small-sided games like this because they're all trying to push these small-sided games. So it seems like they're going in the right direction in the US.
Yeah,
When
and like just about us, you and I grew up where we had a backyard that wasn't that big, and it was chain link fence all around, and it was just grass. Mom and Dad didn't plant any trees back there, and for 2 or 3 hours every day, it was just a cage match of small-sided game soccer, and we didn't know any better, and so somehow we were like already in this environment, and it was the 80s, 90s, and we just had so much small-sided games, and it was obvious that it paid off. Like, that was such a good environment for us to be in. So we can look at our, what we grew up with, and say, oh, this does work just from that. And even, I was basically the mayor of recess, so it was a soccer game every recess.
Yes, it was.
Right? So it's like I'd bring the soccer ball and everybody would just play, and it's just like it was just doing what US soccer is trying to do now in the 2020s. But we were somehow lucked into that exact same environment when we were kids.
I think a big aspect of this is make it fun for the kids so they play on their own. Because if they're not playing soccer on their own, just like we had to do playing in the backyard, playing at school, if they're not doing that, they're not going to make it anywhere in soccer, right? So if we can make it fun for them, make it so they want to play on their own, they have a chance at a future in the sport.
We would call up our teammates and be like, do you want to play World Cup on the weekends? And even create our own small-sided games. But it's tough now. Everything's organized by mom and dad. It's a play date. But it's like that 10,000 hours rule is it's perfect for soccer, because it's like those kids who get their 10,000 hours in fastest, they become the really good soccer players. So we got to try to encourage our kids to somehow get those 10,000 hours in. And I would even recommend to parents and even coaches is that the players don't need more coaching. That is not the answer. And I see a lot of parents who are like, oh, we're doing one-on-one coaching with this guru over here that works on this. Right. And it's like, yeah, you're just wasting your money. You're just wasting money, because your kid doesn't practice in the backyard, right? Like, if your kid, I tell parents, if your kid's not practicing in the backyard, I wouldn't be driving them down to, in our case, Denver, so that they can be, playing on this special team or that special team, right? They haven't shown that they love it, right? So,
right.
Start making that extra effort after your kids are calling up their friends to play on weekends, and, playing in their backyard, juggling over 1,000, that type of stuff.
Right. Let's just finish with a final example of what a practice looks like. So if you want to teach the players what 1v1 defending looks like in a play session, what would that practice look like?
Well, I would do the 1v1 in my middle part, right? So in the first part, I'm going to do my 3v3, 4v4, whatever in that environment. And then I might, for that next one, I will do a 1v1 like practice, and you can just go on like Cannoli and find a whole bunch of different versions of it. So you could find what works for you. But what I would do is just pick one part of the 1v1 environment. So I'm not going to be coaching the offensive part, then the defensive part in the same exercise. I'm just going to be like, all right, let's just work on the defending of in this 1v1 environment. And the very next practice, you could set up the same thing and then just work on the offensive side of the 1v1. So you could demonstrate what you're trying to get across to the kids, maybe give them step one is whatever, like you just kind of go through your teaching points with the players. Maybe once players start doing it really well, like highlight that. Boy, that's exactly what you want to do, right? As opposed to always stepping in and saying, no, that wasn't right.
Right.
Find the example within the practice that is right. And then maybe even try to make it competitive. Like, if it was offense, it was like, who can score 7 goals first, right? And then we move on, type of thing. But the most important thing is just focus on one part of it. Like you just want one part. It's like, we're just doing attack, or we're just doing, like if it's attack, it's like, once you get that ball, don't just sit on the ball, take it at them as fast as you can, right? Like, and then you have a move in mind, what are you going to do, right? And then, do your feint or whatever it is, and you just kind of let them play out. But the first thing is just try to get everybody getting that first touch, taking them in a positive direction.
But you would for a play session, you would still start with a 3v3 type of a game.
Yep.
And then you would do maybe set up 1v1s.
Yep.
And then focus on the defending portion of the teaching. But then the final game, you'd let it play, but then your focus is still that 1v1.
Yeah, you can carry that. You can carry that theme into your practice, and maybe you're encouraging them to dribble players 1v1, right? I don't care if you lose the ball. This practice is about you getting by your defender, like that sort of thing. So, but you do it in the middle part. If you're gonna have a very specific thing like that, do that in the middle of your practice.
Right.
But you can be talking about it in your first small-sided game, right? Even though you might not be doing 1v1s right off the bat. But just think about how boring a practice that kind of might be if you get to practice and it's 1v1s. It's not quite as fun. But if you're there, you're doing 3v3 games and it's king of the court and your team's on the first, your team's on the top field and you're taking your picture afterwards and, it's exciting. And then your team photo. And then you do the 1v1 in the middle. That's fine, and then you go to the scrimmage at the end and you're still dribbling players. That's a good practice.
Yeah, I think kids would definitely love doing this. And I think it's going to help. I think it's going to help U.S. soccer. What do you think? Do you think this sort of coaching for kids is going to bring American kids up to where European kids might be or South American kids might be with the sport?
It's not going to hurt them. It will help them. But the thing is time, right? You got to be the kid playing in your backyard. You got to be the kid who's, the player who's practicing when everybody else isn't. Was Maradona made because of all the great coaching he had? No, he was made probably in the slums of Argentina, kicking the ball around 8 hours a day, right? Like that's where soccer players are made.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I think we've covered as much as I can think of with play, practice, play. Appreciate you sticking on here and allowing me to hit the record button. Good luck in your next game, and we'll have you on for another topic in the future. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching the full video. Feel free to leave a comment with your thoughts on play, practice, play so we can keep the discussion going. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Good luck in your next game.